Shu Emmanuel, national president of the Reform Party, to tell Cameroonians what actually happened on the 20th of May 1972.
Thank you, Mr. Kum. We have been informed historically that on the 20th of May 1972 there was what was called a peaceful revolution. That Cameroon moved from the federal structure to the unitary system of the unity state, and that became possible through a referendum that was conducted in this country. Now, I want to talk as a legal mind because, as we know, in 1972 there was a federal constitution that was put in place. I will look at the federal constitution itself later on, how it came about to exist, but let us just look at the provisions of that federal constitution. When you look at the federal constitution of the first, which is cited as the federal constitution of the 1st of September 1961, that constitution put in place a federal Republic of Cameroon that had a federal government and two federated state governments. The powers of the President of the Federal Republic were spelled out in Articles 5 to 15 of that constitution, and it also had miscellaneous provisions at the end. And when you go through the powers of the president, the powers of the federal legislature, the powers of the assemblies of the federated states, you will see that there is nowhere in that constitution that any mention is made of the word referendum. In fact, the legal minds, when they go through this constitution, ask themselves the question: where did President Ahidjo get the mandate, the power, the constitutional power to organize a referendum in Cameroon that will enable him set aside the federal constitution? And if we look at the provisions of that constitution, of the federal constitution of the 1st of September 1961, there is nowhere in that constitution where the president of the Federal Republic of Cameroon was authorized to organize a referendum. And we are saying that, going by that premises, it is something terrible, because we are celebrating what the law has not provided, because we have a constitution that was existing and from which the then president took his powers to organize a referendum. But unfortunately, that constitution does not seem to have given him the right and the powers to organize a referendum. So, Mr. Kum, I think that any person, any legal mind, or any politician who thinks that what I'm saying is not true should prove me wrong. From this constitution, which I have here, and I think I've made copies that I'll give Mr. Kum and the other panelists, there is nowhere inside this constitution where you will see the powers of the federal president, but that are spelled from section 5 to section 15.
Yes, that point has been made from the legal standpoint. But
yes.
What actually happened?
Now, what actually happened was that Cameroonians, when you look at the ballot papers that were sent out, the ballot papers bore a choice between we and yes. Do you want Cameroon to move from a federal system to a unitary system? And the choice was between we and yes. So that there again was another, like our senior brother, late senior brother, to say nonsensical nonsense, because you cannot ask somebody to choose between we, which is yes in French, and yes, which is we in English.
But senior barrister, I've had at least 3 historians who tell me that there was a ballot paper for no, which was.
I have copies. If you want, I can open it. And
what happened? Let's just tell the story.
Yes. So we are saying that we noticed that Cameroonians were not actually given the choice.
Okay.
They were given no choice between the federal system and the unity state, which nobody had any notion of. And then on another note, you see, same things seem to have happened as if it was some Njangi house arrangement. Because since, as I said, in the constitution there was no provision for a referendum. Normally when there is a referendum, it is supposed to go back, because a referendum is a popular consultation, and popular consultations go back to the legislature for ratification. Now, since this one was not provided in the constitution, the results could have been taken to nowhere. You see, that is the other flaw. If the results of that referendum were taken to nobody. The Federal Assembly never saw it. The Federated State Assemblies never saw it. So we have a situation where Cameroonians just got up, they were asked to go to the polls, they went, and a result of, I think, 99 points.
Campaigns were not done?
Well, there were campaigns.
You say Cameroonians just got up and were asked to go to the polls?
Well, there were campaigns, national unity. Then I think I was in Lycée Bilingual Grammar School, Buya, and we actually saw campaigns. There were campaigns. People went around in caravans preaching the virtues of a unity state, to show that we're going to be real brothers, not the brothers who were one living in Jericho, the other one in South Africa. I mean, virtues of togetherness were preached and were made to understand that the unity state was going to bring us more development, because the federal system was being brandished as an expensive system that prevented the government from carrying out developmental projects. And so they were going out, leaving that system to go to one that was going to free more resources that will be used to develop the country.
Okay.